For my project, I've decided to do the Dilophosaurus. Through history, it's had many adaptations through scientific findings and on people's concepts and how it may have looked, from body shapes to the head variations. Other people have already attempted this work before, having different outcomes, their own different designs and adaptations to how they want it to look in the end. One 3D artist I did look at was Marcel Schanz. He's a 3D character artist, and he has worked on a Dilophosaurus before. As you can see, he's been able to get one in under 5,000 tries and a texture resolution of 2048 using specular, diffuse, gloss and normal. For the dinosaur, I was going to add armour, adapting mainly old medieval horse armour around the dinosaur's torso, neck, maybe legs. To start with was the base mesh, starting from the body, working down to the legs and the arms, getting all the loops in, so it would be easier to work on once you got into the stage of ZBrush. Once completing the base mesh, it was on to checking, doing an STL check to make sure there was no holes, no vertices that wasn't welded, so it didn't create any holes once going into ZBrush. I also found in one of the lectures a TV program which had dinosaurs armoured up, really. I did some research into this, and on going onto this research and the timescale I had decided to abandon armouring up the dinosaur and just stick with the traditional dinosaur as it stands. Once getting into ZBrush from my base mesh, I decided to focus mainly on the upper head to give me that start point, the flow from the head down into the body, so it all looks fluid and not out of place. Then I was working on the muscle definition to build shape to the body instead of just a sleek flow. Once the muscle definition has been created, I went out and got alphas from sites of, as the PictureLogic site itself had alphas for scales. I went in there and I started to slowly build up the scales on the upper torso and the legs, leaving soft skin areas under the belly and the neck. Once all the skin and the scales were done to a standard I liked, I went on to actually poly painting. By doing this, I added a cavity mask so I could paint on the high and the low areas on a separate level. This really helped put in this basic layers of paint first, then build on upon them from the skins to the scale, and getting it back into 3ds Max, applying the maps. Was able to get a full low poly of 11,000 tries. From there we went on to making a cat rig. This is for making the animations to go into UDK. For this skinning was needed and an idle and a walk animation. With the research and the modelling all out of the way, I was able to get the base mesh into UDK with the normal maps, texture maps, spec maps, and I was able to set up the materials. For my material, I followed a skin shader guide, which is described within my slides. Basically, it adds almost a sheen to the skin, just to try and make it a bit more lifelike. With my mesh imported into UDK as well as its animations, the mesh itself has an animation of an idol, and a standard walking animation. The standard walking animation was derived from the cat rig's dinosaur standard walk. I tweaked it myself by adding a tail movement, as in the standard it was much more rigid. I've decreased the shaking from side to side, also the length of the strides and the movement of the arms. I've also reduced the sway of the head to keep in time, but almost in line with the tails, to give it a fluid side-to-side motion. So, with the animations in, one of the a problem did arise by setting up the anim tree. As both anim sets work, and on setting up the anim tree, I followed the guide on the slides from the lecture. I set up the base mesh as it follows, and I also set up the both anim sets to be plugged into the blend and the sequence names added, but on scrolling nothing seems to happen, and I've not as of yet found a way to fix this. In the future, maybe I would look to redoing all the animations again, maybe re-importing everything from the start and building from there. As it stands, this hasn't been able to work for me, so setting up the pawn in UDK has not been possible. But I was able to set up the physics for the mesh, and as you can see, it all sticks together. A bit of stretching around the arms, just the way it's fell. The jaw and the head stay, the legs and the tail, it all holds together pretty well through the physics. One of my big problems was the setting up of the scripting. As it's shown on my forum, I seem to have an ambiguous file that don't exist on my computer anywhere, which could be seen if I can find them. Here we go. Development SRC, dinosaurs, classes. See, when I build the front end, it tells me that my files are named Dino Player and Dino Pawn, but the secondary files, instead of building the dino.dino2, it's building files out of nowhere, and searching forums on the UDN, I've not been able to find any way of locating these files and removing them, or if they even exist, because this the second time of trying to rewrite the script and implement it. It's a bit going wrong for me. If I could do it again, maybe I'd look to completely uninstall UDK and reinstall it and build the scripting again from scratch, as well as all the naming conventions. But as I've got the dinosaur into the game, as he stands on his own, although he's not quite suited to this environment, I think he does work quite well. He's not too overly powerful. The normal maps and the textures seem to blend in well, and overall quite happy with it. I would have liked to spend maybe some more time on the textures compared to someone else who has done the same as you can see. This person's also doing a Dilophosaurus. His is slightly different from mine, so it's longer in the body and rounder on the legs and the rear. But as I say, his texturing and his use of UV space is a lot better than mine, because I went down the UV space of UV Master in ZBrush to export my textures and my UV maps and my normal maps, just so I could get more control over where I place the seams, as opposed to UV optimization. His texturing over mine is a lot greater, especially when he's worked on it for the second time. Especially the skin texturing around the back and on top of the head. It's really impressive. It's really something I would look to work on again, to try and get this same effect onto my own model. But overall, I'm quite happy with mine, besides not being able to get him into UDK and playing because of scripting and anim tree problems. Again, that's something for me to build on in the future.